What's up, everybody? BobbyFi. I'm back with my man Eric Sheets-Haber. Had to wear a backwards hat after he said that only the real experts or whatever wear the hat
That's
backwards.
right.
So I had to put one on this time. If you happen to watch the NBA show we did earlier, we got a little showdown slate for you. Showdown slates are always weird, so we're going to talk about some pivots. Last week we actually got some things right. It didn't end up hitting big, but we had some of the right plays. Some people made some money, and I was happy to see that as well. People who watched the videos, we had one guy who won first place at a smallish tournament, but big for most people, I would say. Anyway, interesting little one gamer. What are your sort of initial thoughts?
I'll tell you, the people, I feel this way about hockey sometimes, about some specialized things. I feel that the people that are real experts in Showdown and do really focus all their efforts on Showdown have to have such a big edge, because most people play Showdown as, oh, okay, there's a game, I'll play some Showdown. Like when we were talking earlier, you said to me, oh, let's do the Showdown slate. And I said, who the hell? Who the hell is even playing? I wasn't even thinking about the NFL because I was so locked into the NBA that, whatever. But, I worry about playing into a slate where there might be experts that know how to do this better than I do. But nonetheless, I still think my portfolio management skills can help me out a little bit. I think my desire to be contrarian can help me out a little bit. So let's try to see if we can turn you on to some of the things that have been working. Because I think that I'm telling you, you were close a couple of weeks ago. I was just like kind of one player, and I was one run away. But you know how it is in Showdown. You can be one run away and end up in 18,000th place. Okay,
Yeah.
So
There's some interesting spots to pivot. Like we've noticed one consistent trend from the times that we've been doing the videos, and that other people have too. That for the most part in these football showdowns, you've seen it hasn't always been on the winning lineups, but there's almost always been one of the 200, 400, 600 guys who's exceedingly produced it for that value, giving you at least a chance if the other guys do what they want in your lineup. So that's sort of the first thing I've been noticing, just to find those low guys if it's necessary. But even if it's not necessary, I think it's worth taking a shot on some of these cheap guys. So that was sort of the first thing that I went to. And then the next thought I had about this slate was, okay, if this was being played right now on a regular slate, I think I would have interest, especially on, surprisingly, like some of the Indianapolis side. New Orleans defense is banged up. I think they're a very good defense. They're banged up right now. Colts are in must-win territory and beyond. They're going to force I'm sure they're going to force the return of Hilton tonight. I want to get heavy on their side. I just can't figure out where to go with it. So I think that they're also a good place to take a shot on a guy like a Mo Alley Cox. I think that if there's one guy I'd prioritize and I probably wouldn't make a lineup without tonight, it would be Jack Doyle. Just because I think that the pass work, the comfort, the way that they defend in New Orleans, and I think there's going to be some holes in the middle. Also doesn't have as much to contend with. I also like the idea of playing Mo Alley Cox at no ownership as the little minimum cost guy. And that's sort of what I was thinking along with the New Orleans running game, because I do think people will go to the passing game of New Orleans. And while that is this place you want to attack Indy, to be a little bit more contrarian, maybe play both running backs from New Orleans with something like the guys I was talking about. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was going to step on your toes there when you started talking about the 200, 300 guys, because that's where I was going to lead with. I almost joked that 4 weeks ago, whatever. Listen, the winning lineup always has just one of these guys in. You don't know who it's going to be, but it's always one of them. And I joked you should just have one of all of them. And it's really funny. Like last night had a showdown slate, and it seemed like the simplest slate of all. Buffalo was playing Pittsburgh. It was going to be a low-scoring game, and I was wondering how you could ever differentiate yourself at all. And I played a couple, and I was watching the lobbies. And the whole game I'm watching, and first place is a tie for between 8,000 people. Second place is a tie for 4,000 people. Third place, I'm like, is this going to be the one? Is this going to be the one showdown slate where one of these 200 guys just doesn't make someone different? And it just kept going, and nothing was different. All of a sudden, Tyler Kroft scored a touchdown, and it was over. Then all of a sudden, we had one guy with a unique lineup, and then the guy behind him had a unique lineup. And that's just all you need, okay, is one of those idiots to do something. And to have a lineup with no other people with your lineup in a showdown slate, almost regardless of who it is, right, is so is so valuable. And if you have a guy that actually has a shot to score something, it's just amazing leverage. And I don't know. Look, all slates are different. So, but this is really the way I started looking at this slate, is looking at these 300 guys and doing nothing other than even just I listed all the players in the player pool and then just like look through, like, this guy literally no snaps. Okay, so don't have to worry about him. Then you even this guy Zach Line. Okay. He's got a thing. He's got a couple of rush, and he's got something that says he should work as a blocker and occasional receiving option. Okay? Occasional sounds good to me. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm trying to beat a billion people, and it's not like that. It's one of those Draftkings notes where the news is from like October. You know what I mean? Occasional receiving option at 200. So I'm going to just include him as the people I'm looking at. Deontay Harris, it's like he's going to return into his return role. So I'm not worried about just taking a guy who's going to do kick returns. This guy, Washington, it looks like no snaps, right? No offensive snaps. No offensive snaps. So I'm not too worried about him. And I was going to be into these Colt guys. You know, had all these ideas of, okay, if T.Y. Hilton's out, you know, you could take a shot at these like Chad Williams guys who really don't have much, but he had one target, right? Is one target enough? Maybe not one target. And then there's, like you said, Mo Alley Cox. I don't know, this Ross Travis guy. This is really the way I look at these $200 guys. He's got a target. He had 3 targets 2 games before. I don't know. And then like Mo Alley Cox, who you said, who's probably going to be the most popular of the off the board plays. And then the other one I was looking at with this Ashton Dulin, who was going to be probably, I don't want to say popular, but the next guy that people would go to if if what's his name was ruled out. But it looks like he's going to play, right? Hilton.
T.Y., yeah.
Yeah. So the only guy that I would look at, and this is like not that cheap, and this is kind of my narrative in this. So they picked up Dontrell Inman on Tuesday, okay? And they picked him up because, listen, they didn't know where T.Y. was going to be available, and he's been there before, right? So he knows the plays, he knows whatever. And just my theory is that even if Hilton plays, they're going to get Inman. You know, they pulled him up. You know, he knows the plays. They're going to get him some looks. And again, God forbid this game's out of hand. I mean, why would they run Hilton off the whole game with unlimited snaps and routes if the game's decided when he's a little banged up? So I don't know. Maybe a guy like Inman, who knows the plays, who could they throw in there. Maybe he's the guy that gets there. So that's the way I started with these no shot guys.
Right. I think it's interesting. I didn't find myself as much, but that's a good argument for Inman. And he's sort of at a funnier price where no one is going to play him. Like, he's not going to be owned. He's not going to be one of the guys people pivot over to. I think that that there's the one side of it. Then there's the obvious chalk guys. Like, obviously Drew Brees, Jacoby Brissett, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas. Those guys are going to be the chalkiest guys, and for good reason. You're mixing in those guys is the way I feel it. But like, if there's one high-end guy who I think the people aren't going to play that I'm going to play, that I would at least consider playing, it's Zach Pascal. People are going to be afraid to go to him with Hilton back, and his price is still up there. There's a route where Hilton is really, he's banged up, trust me, where he doesn't finish this game. There's also another route that they've developed a little bit of a rapport there in Indy. They're also going to need their secondary receivers, which tend to be more successful than the primaries, obviously, against New Orleans. So Zach Pascal is like an interesting upper tier guy who's not going to get the ownership that the other guys do. But it wouldn't surprise any of us if he put up 20 again, which he's done the last couple of weeks without Hilton. He can still do it as a backup. Obviously, Hilton changes a lot, but I think that, as a secondary receiver, he's still an interesting option at the high end.
If I were qualified to say this, maybe one day I will be, but this is where I would say something like that's like really super sharp. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm not authorized to say that quite yet, but that's exactly the way I would think about this. You know, I'm surprised I didn't come up with that because it's perfect. You know, Zach Pascal, if Hilton were out, would be pretty chalky. He wouldn't be as chalky as the third guy, the Johnson guy, whatever, but he'd be pretty chalky as the number one option. And with Hilton in, the price looks a little expensive, which is going to keep people off him right off the bat. And that little bit that you mentioned, kind of, sort of what I said also. I mean, like he's the guy that's definitely going to be in there for all the receiving snaps. You don't really know how healthy Hilton is. I mean, he's going to try, obviously. He's in a dome. He loves playing in a dome and all that stuff. But Pascal, I mean, that again, when you said he's not going to be that highly owned, I usually just look at the ownership and say, okay, that means he's going to be like 30%, right? And I'm actually looking down, and the first thing I'm looking at is like in the teens, which on a showdown slate is that's low owned, So, and what do you think he would be in the captain? I mean, if he's going to be 15, 20%,
he'll be completely unowned in the captain.
Yeah. So what's interesting is the chalk guys. Kamara and Thomas, I guess, are the two chalkiest guys. I mean, you say for good reason, and they're both really expensive. I find it hard. I don't want to say I find it hard to believe this is the case, but do you think both of them are going to hit a ceiling? You know what I mean? Like, do you think that both of them are going to be?
They don't need to hit a ceiling.
Big scores.
Yeah, I think that they both get 20 here a lot. I really like the idea of potentially, because the pricing actually, even if you use a value guy, is kind of tight because these guys are really priced up. I sort of like the idea of playing Jack Doyle in the captain. I've got a lineup that I really, really like with Jack Doyle as my captain. Also, I think that the way the game is played could benefit him. Like they're passing from behind. He's got to make a lot of, he's got to catch the ball a lot coming from behind. You play him with Kamara and Thomas and skip Breeze. And, you can play Pascal, you can play Hilton and Mo Cox, you can do whatever you want. I think that's going to be an unusual build, and one that I'm definitely leaning towards, because I could see the route where Jack Doyle ends up being potentially the highest scoring player in this game. And he's going to be owned, but not in the captain spot. So there's a lot of interesting pivots of the traditional ways to go here.
Well, this is the way I look, and tell me if this logic is flawed, and it could be. So I look at the top owned guys on the slate as being Kamara and Thomas, and I mean, I'd just love to envision a scenario where you could play both of those guys and win, but I just don't. I can't find the math to make that happen. You know what I mean? Can you really play two 68% owned guys that are probably taking each other's usage, sort of?
If your captain is Jack, they put up 20 in the same games all the time. Like, I would play those guys and play Lat Murray with them. I don't have any problem with it. I think that it's logical. Like, they're gonna get there. It's like Michael Thomas is the most targeted receiver in the NFL. Alvin Kamara is just the most talented player other than Michael Thomas probably in this game. That's enough reason for me. They're going to get the work. Like, skipping Kamara might some sense in playing Murray. And even skipping Thomas, you could argue, because the price. But if you're going to play Jack Doyle as your captain and you're going to run it back with Mo Cox or a T.Y. Hilton in that stack with Brissett and skipping over Breeze, like, that is not going to be a build that other people have.
Well, is anybody going to have the Jack Doyle and the captain with Breeze correlated?
Right, you just took my lineup, except for
all these. No, you have Zach Line?
No, I don't have Zach Line.
Well, he's the lock, so I mean, occasional receiving work. No, occasional receiving work at 200.
Hey, I like it. I mean,
get handoff to Kamara and a passing touchdown to Zach Line.
Or you can get the sneaky touchdown also to the other guy, the third string tight end, Travis.
Oh.
Travis had 6 snaps last week and was targeted once for hit a catch. He had 2 catches for 31 yards the week before. I mean, 2 catches for 31 yards, you'll take it at 300.
Which guy are we talking about?
That was Travis.
He's literally the one guy.
But he's getting out snapped. I mean, you look at it last week. Doyle had 49 snaps. They didn't use hardly any two tight end sets, which is unlike what they usually run. Mo Cox got 16 snaps and Ross Travis had 5 snaps.
What do you do with guys? I would bet that a lot of guys that play Showdown always, and the Saints are playing, always think about whether or not to play Taysom Hill. just because
Yeah,
he's
I know
always
they
like really
really.
sneaky around the goal line. But he looks like so expensive. If I like really did the math on how often he would even get 10 points, or 9 points even, it seems so unlikely, no?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, people can do it. I get it. Um, oh, he's three. He's 2,000. I'm sorry, I thought he was 3,000. At 2,000.
Oh, it's 3,000 the captain's right, so 2,000.
Yeah, I think he's interesting more at 2,000 actually, because then you're talking about him versus a guy like Inman. Although I think that Taysom Hill is going to be more owned than Inman is.
Well, I would hope so.
Yeah, I mean, but still, Taysom Hill is still not going to be like very owned. You know what I mean? Like that's an interesting pivot. So we've talked through a lot of them. Which would be your preferences of ways to pivot? I mean, is this it? Are we talking? You're going the Zach Line route as of right now, or I mean, for me, it's Mo Alley Cox. I completely understand the argument for just rotating all of them if you're playing a bunch of lineups.
Yeah, what's the difference? I mean, well, the problem with playing Mo Alley Cox is that it comes much closer to using your salary. And I would say that Mo Alley Cox, and this is really splitting hairs, but I think Mo Alley Cox is going to have probably 10 times the ownership as Zach Line, which means like 2% as opposed to 0.2%. So it's really not. I think it's splitting hairs or whatever. But yeah, I would do that. I can't. I don't have it in me to separate all these 200 guys. So I would do that. I would play some of him. I would play some of that. I would play one with the Ross Travis, right?
Yeah.
Put him in there. I'd play one with the Mo Alley Cox. And this is one way you could definitely do it. This one goes against what I was thinking of. This one goes against fading one of the Thomas or Kamara. But like you said, I mean, if you put – maybe that's the way to think about it. It's not so much like how owned they're going to be, but how owned they're going to be in the captain. So if you're like playing Doyle in the captain, that's got to be instant leverage, right? I mean, he's not going to be more than 5% on the captain, will he?
I can't imagine. Although on this slate, like there's a reason. Let's just say he was a little bit. The combination of just him without Breeze, with Brissett and Pascal and Mo Alley Cox is just not going to be owned.
Right.
And there's a route for those guys. Like, you know, sure, it hasn't been this year for Mo Alley Cox, but he's, you know, he could get in the end zone once. You know what I mean? They could catch a ball in the end zone. So could Zach Pascal. I'm sorry. So could the third stringer. But I just think there's a better chance with Cox on the field. I also think that they might run more 2 tight end sets today, which would force, you know, more for Doyle. I think would be beneficial. But I just like that idea of trying to play both those guys together with the Brissett Pascal or Brissett Hilton combo.
Well, this one has Inman and Cook in it. Well, let's do something else. Let's do what I think a lot of people are going to do as the first contrarian thing they would do. So the first thing that people would think of is to do all the Saints guys, fine. So I think the next thing that people would do is try to play the Indianapolis passing game, like you said, right? So I imagine that the first things you could do is put Hilton in the captain, right? So you put Hilton in the captain, and then let's say you put Brissett to correlate, and let's say you put, you know, nothing fancy. Let's say you put Pascal in there.
That's pretty fancy already.
See, like to me, this like seems very normal because if you're going to play Indianapolis passing, you play a quarterback with 2 receivers. No,
well, then you should be playing Brissett in the captain, I would argue. But like, I also think that Pascal, like, it's not like he's like a play tonight. Like he's a play because we want him. He's an interesting play. He's not a guy who people are going to go to. He doesn't fit in. Look at the pricing around him.
Well,
people will only do it if they. What's really sad is that he'll probably be higher owned in the $10 than in the $180. But he's a better play in the $180 for the reasons why he's not a good play in the $10. Because people are going to overlook the situation. People will look at the situation and think with Hilton coming back, they'll leave it alone, as opposed to the other average players who are going to say, oh, this guy got 20 in a row, two games in a row.
What do you think of the Saints receivers in general?
I mean, this is a very off-the-board build here. I think you can play any of them. I would play Traquan as my top one. I have no problem with Ted Ginn. This is not a build that I'm going for tonight, but I can understand it. No, I mean, I like the running game of New Orleans tonight. I think that, especially
you like Murray more than Kamara.
Do I like Murray more. Oh, I prefer Kamara, but
Okay.
I like both of them. I don't mind playing both of them together. But Murray's fine. Like I don't mind that at all. I wouldn't play I would have, and I prefer Thomas over Breeze by a lot.
Why is that?
I don't see this. I mean, if I'm going to play Breeze, then I would play if I was going to play Ginn, Smith, and stuff, I would do that. It's not the route that I'm going.
Okay.
I also think Drew Brees' price, like, I think Michael Thomas, like, is a better play for point per dollar. Just, I mean, even look at their production versus their price. The season will tell you the same thing. Outside of 2 games, like, Drew Brees is not really done all that much. And if they can get the lead, or even if not, like, if you think they're going to be playing from ahead, maybe they are running the ball a little bit more. I know that Indy's tough to run the ball on, but, like, this is a team that when they're at home, they run the ball on everyone. So.
Well, so again, now let's say you pick the game script like you were that. Well, first you were kind of down on the Saints defense, huh? Because I was gonna think a little more contrarian. I was gonna think that they gave up 45 points last week, and they were just gonna spend the whole week.
Man. They're banged up. I'm not saying that their defense isn't a good play. I'm just saying that it's not where I'm going. I'm trying to take advantage of their defense being banged up by playing the trickier plays on Indy. And by the way, even Ty is not going to be that. Like, he'll be like 35% probably, or 30%.
Okay.
Because he's banged up, and it's a bad statistical matchup.
What do you? Okay, so we can do some analysis of the Saints receivers. So Michael Thomas, obviously the top play. The guy has 1 million targets a game. What do you? The funny thing about Kamara is there was 95 points put up in that game, and he scored 7 fantasy points. I mean, that was so tilting, I have to say. And he hasn't done anything like all year in a way.
It's been a while. I'm going to take the best player in this game. I also think, or the best talent in the situation. I just feel like he's going to break out. I mean, that was a flex game where, like, it was the Drew Brees half where they were throwing the ball downfield on every play. And then they couldn't do anything against the Niners, and the Niners came back. So it wasn't, that was the best defense. Well, one of the best defenses in football, if not the best defense in football. It's just the route that I'm going. I think that I would take, at the same price, I would probably consider Kamara over Breeze, and he's much cheaper.
Who do you like more between Traquan Smith and
Traquan,
and Ted Ginn?
Traquan, but it's because I actually think that the money does matter, even if you go with one cheap guy on this slate.
So if Drew Brees throws 2 touchdowns to Michael Thomas and sneaks one into Traquan Smith, and they have a big lead, and now the Colts have to kind of chip their way back and just throw the ball a lot. So Jack Doyle's going to get a zillion targets, right?
Should. So one of Hilton or the other one. But you don't. It leaves you in a kind of a funny little no man's land with.
Because then you can't get your
money on the table.
Can't get your lock Inman in the game. No.
You can leave money on the table, like, in this weird spot, but I don't. I think there's probably a better way to go. I would say, like, maybe you play Lat Murray and, or you could even play Kamara too. No, you can't play Kamara.
So you're kind of liking the producers over the quarterback here. Like, you're kind of liking Thomas and Kamara as opposed to Breeze. I mean, if you had to pick.
Yeah, I like Brissett too. And we didn't talk about Marlon Mack, which is totally fine if you want to go that route. It's just not not the way that my game script build is going.
I just wonder if you did this, if you played the obvious, so you put Thomas there and you put Kamara there. This has got to be just pretty. Well, maybe it's not going to be that highly. Yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah, that feels pretty chalky. Oh, except for Pascal. No, Pascal.
That's when you do this.
Nobody's
no Hilton.
Nobody's playing Pascal. I mean, I'm telling you, I don't even think if 15% is going to be right. I think you're going to see people look at the prices around him. It is kind of weird, getting him in exactly.
I don't know.
I think people would prefer to go.
Yeah, how do you do that? How do you play Pascal at 8,000 when there's Hilton at 8,200, right?
Yeah, and then you've got Mac cheaper. You've got Brissett right there, like, not that much more expensive, and It's just there's a lot, and he's as a secondary receiver, he hasn't done it.
Okay,
yet.
you know what? There is a guy we have to talk about if we are going to play this idea that the Saints are going to Colts are going to have to pass a little bit. What do you do with Naheem Hines?
Yeah, he was the other guy I was considering. Maybe you throw him in instead of Pascal in this lineup, and then take Inman out of there.
I mean, that fits, right? I mean,
yeah. And
then you don't get to play Inman though. How are you gonna survive without playing Inman?
You can play Pascal.
Almost.
No, you can. Oh no, you can't.
Almost.
Almost. Marlon Mack.
It's like they do that on purpose to you.
It feels that way. I know it's not, but it does feel that way.
They anticipate this exact build, and they're forcing me to not play this.
All right, man. Well, we got to get out of here soon, and so we can get this video out to you guys. What are your final sort of thoughts? We went through a bunch of different potential builds. I think the main thing we all talked about. Well, real quick, sorry, I sort of answered.
No, that's fine. My thoughts remain as they were before. That you have to take one of these. Not have to, but it's very advisable to take shots on those 400, 200 guys. And I'm kind of going to stick to my thought is that I'm going to find it difficult to spend all the money for Thomas and Kamara, both at 66+% ownership, unless the rest of your lineup kind of is off the board. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do sort of the things I screwed around with here. You know what I mean? Stuff that's like, whoa, you know what I mean? Because if you think about it that way and you are spending close to your salary, you're probably in the ball game at least. And if you stare at and as long as it's correlated somewhat decently, maybe that's the way to get a little bit different, is to put your Colts guys in the captain and still play your Saints guys in the flex.
Yeah, I'm going to say it. Play Jack Doyle tonight, or at least I'm going to play Jack Doyle in my lineups. Sheets, good doing the show with you, man. For Sheets, I'm Bobby. Good luck tonight, everybody. Give us the thumbs up and the like, and please stay tuned for some live shows, which we should be doing shortly.